Hello and welcome to the Giddy Carousel of Pop, the podcast that takes an old issue of the swingerilliant pop mag smash hits, usually from the 80s, although we may slide a year or two either side of that, and has a good nose through its pages with a guest. I'm Simon Galloway, and spending cash on looking flash and grabbing your attention is Gavin Hogg.
Oui, c'est moi. Hi, Si, how you doing? All right.
I'm all right, thank you. It's a little bit sunny as we're recording this. I'm getting a bit warm already. I'm hoping I'm going to last the distance.
All right. If we see you wilting, we'll send some water your way, yeah?
Please do. Now, before we set the carousel in motion, as ever, a few thank yous to those of you out there who've been buying us coffees to keep us refreshed. And, a cold coffee. What is it? Is that a Frappuccino? Is that what one of those is?
I believe that. Yes, Frappuccino, mate.
I'll have one of those this evening. I'm not much of a coffee drinker, but there you go. Gav, do you want to tell us who's bought us some coffees?
Indeed, yeah. We have four very generous, very, very lovely people to thank. We have Doug Grant, who says, thanks for transporting me back to my youth. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Doug. That's very kind of you. Laura Kelly, a previous guest on the show, says that the carousel is a repository of such joy. Very nice. Joseph Boyle, thank you for this podcast. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Joseph. And a lovely one from someone called Russ, who says, love the podcast. I'm from the USA and so unfamiliar with smash hits, but in love with the music you cover. It's great being able to follow along the exploration of the hits as a complete novice. I've got to say, as one of the team that put this podcast together, the thought of someone who doesn't really know smash hits, but still listens anyway and gets something out of it, well, that's job done, isn't it, Si?
I think it is, yeah.
That's very nice to know. So thank you, Russ. And all of our lovely listeners.
Yeah, and the two people there saying keep up the good work, I'm feeling under pressure now.
Yeah.
We'll keep it up, whether it's good or not is up to you.
We'll do our best.
But if you want to support us, you too can do the same. It's very simple. And it can be just a one-off thing, or you can buy us as many coffees as you like, as often as you like. It's up to you. Just go to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/giddypoppod, and chuck us a few quid to help keep the carousel spinning. Plus, you'll get a mention in our next episode. Now, I think it's about time we welcomed our guest onto the carousel. But Gavin, who the juggins is it?
Well, Si, in an exciting first for the Giddy Carousel of Pop, today we have a guest who not only has had his photograph in the magazine, but has played drums on a record where the lyrics mention smash hits. My family's a weird lot. My stepsister's got horrible growth. Listens to all this Muzak shit. Reads smash hits while she's eating a tea. To me, it sounds like bad CB. He was only 16 when he played his first gig with a fall at Camden's Electric Ballroom supporting the Cramps. And since finishing his O-levels, he's also played with Ark, The Lovers, and is currently in Bricks and the Extricated. Recently, he's become an author. His book, Leave the Capital, A History of Manchester Music in 13 Recordings, was published in 2017. And Have a Bleeding Guess, The Story of Hex Induction Hour, came out 2 years later. And so, as our previous guest vacates their seat, he bounds onto the carousel and asks that we set the controls of it back to May the 28th, 1981. And Si and I know better than to deny his request, for he is the most troublesome of the musical brothers of Wythenshawe. It's only Mr. Paul Hanley. Welcome on board, Paul. Which horse would suit you best?
Whenever the carousel, they always have one called Rosanna for some reason. I don't know why, but that's my daughter's name, so I'm going to go on that one. So
okay.
I don't know if there's some kind of tradition about what the horses are called on carousels, but there's always one called Rosanna, so I'll have that one.
We'll reserve Rosanna for you then.
Okay. We didn't name it after a carousel horse.
Welcome. Nice to have you along.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So as Gavin says, we're going back to May the 28th to June the 10th, 1981, a double A-side issue with the Stray Cats on one side and Kim Wilde on the other. And as ever, if you want to read along with us, you can do just that. Thanks to the Like Punk Never Happened and Smash Hits Remembered websites, you'll find links to the scans of this issue in the show notes for this episode, along with Spotify and YouTube playlists that include pretty much all the songs and artists featured in this issue of The Hits. And you'll also find these links on our website, giddypoppod.home.blog, and we'll also post them on our Twitter and Facebook feeds as well. Just search for the Giddy Carousel of Pop or at GiddyPopPod.
So, before we clamber aboard the carousel, we'll set the scene. Paul, what were you up to in May 1981?
I was the eagle-eyed amongst you might spot what I was up to in 1981 as we get through this magazine. I was in the fall in 1981. I joined in March 1980, so I was well into my tenure as the drummer. I was still the only drummer at the Fall at this time. I was just about to I've been told to move over a bit because we were getting another drummer by the end of this year. But at this point, I was still the only drummer.
How old were you at the time, and where were you living? Were you still living at home?
I was still living at home with my mum and dad. Yeah, I was 17, turned 17 in the February, so only just.
And what about the music you were listening to? What kind of stuff?
Well, some of it's in here actually. I liked a bit of the Stray Cats, which is why I picked the issue. Adam and the Ants were always great. This Dexy's Midnight Runners, I was a bit of a fan on. I'm only going for the contemporary stuff here. Buzzcocks, obviously, they were just about to split up. I think they might have just split up when this came out. So they were my favourite. They were my favourite band. Yeah. But they just about finished by this time. They'd gone a bit down of a dark road, and they were just about to done. Pete Shelley had gone off to start doing Homo Sapien. So that was what I was listening to.
Yeah, where were you getting your music from? Where were you buying it?
Piccadilly Records in Manchester, I think, was one place we used to go to buy records. Funnily enough, there was a shop, in the paper shop near our house, used to sell bootlegs under the counter. And I bought a copy of Best in Good Food, which was a Buzzcocks bootleg. I bought that there. It was so expensive, though. I mean, they were devilishly expensive, them bootlegs. I had to buy it with a friend. We had to buy it between us. It cost that much. But we didn't get it signed. We took it down to Buzzcocks had an office in Manchester on Newton Street, and we took it there to get signed. And Pete Shelley was appalled. He said, "How much did you pay for this?" So when he told him, he was like, "You shouldn't have paid that. Ridiculous."
I'm interested to know, Paul. Were you a reader of Smash Hits?
I was. Yes, I will have bought this issue. I would imagine I bought it every fortnight, wasn't it? I think. Yeah. I was an inveterate Smash Hits reader. And
had you been there from the beginning, or do you remember when you first discovered it?
I don't actually. I was looking back at some of these issues, and probably around 1980, I would say, possibly. That was when it got big, wasn't it? I think it sort of became ubiquitous around the end of '79, possibly.
Yeah.
Because the writing's really good in it, isn't it? That's the thing you forget. I'm sure you don't forget because you do this every week. But I was refamiliarising myself. The writing's really funny. It's great.
Yeah, and I think the humour sort of builds more as it goes on.
Yeah.
Well, I was interested in what the general attitude of the rest of the band was to Smash Hits. I guess if you're on the tour bus or something, people have got different music papers and stuff. With Smash Hits, were people just ripping the piss out of it, or did people enjoy it? Or
I think so. Yeah. I mean, we ended up in it, like you said before. So no, I don't. He meant, like you say, Mark mentioned it, and I'm into CB, but I don't think it's particularly nasty mention, is it? It's fairly affectionate, I think. I think it was fairly well thought of, because I think the thing about the enemy and the sounds, they kind of disappeared up themselves a little bit at times. So it was quite refreshing, wasn't it? Smash Hits, I think.
Yeah, a lot less pretension in Smash Hits.
Yes, definitely,
for sure.
Yeah. So were you a reader of the Inkies, the weeklies as well?
Yes, everything. I mean, devoured them all, really. So one of you would buy NME, one of you would buy Sounds, somebody would buy Melody Maker, somebody would buy Smash Hits, and then just swap them about. But read them cover to cover, all of them. Which took some doing with the NME in them days.
So as a kid, I mean, I know you're only 17 at this point in May '81, but thinking back to earlier than that, were you always into music, and would you always go out and buy one of the music papers to find out about it?
Well, it was kind of thrust upon me, really, because I had an older brother who was massively into music, and he was probably buying the NME and things like that as early as like 73, reading about Bowie and stuff. So it was always there, really. So I never really had any well, I did, but I just kind of drifted into it, really. Like everything I've ever done in music, I got it from Steve. He was there before me. I mean, that's always happened. That's been the case with everything. But then, as I've got older, it used to be my other brother, my other older brother. He was more into Elton John and people and singer-songwriters. And I've kind of warmed to some of the stuff he liked. At the time, it was a bit of a them and us with the stuff he liked. But as I've gone on, I've got slightly more affection for it. I suddenly realised that I knew Goodbye Yellow Brick Road all the way through. I heard it on something today. I thought, I know this album, so I must have played it. I must have nicked it off him and played it. But don't tell him. If you see him, don't tell him. Just between us.
Gav, what were you up to in May 1981?
So in May 81, I'd have not long turned 11. Final year of primary school. Getting a little bit nervous about the transition to secondary school, because obviously Grange Hill had been on for a few years and I've been watching it. And I was just terrified of, bumping into like a Brummie version of Gripper Stebson at Lighthall Secondary in Solihull. So I was kind of excited, but also quite worried and nervous about what secondary school would be like. Music-wise, we had a few discos at school, and I just recently joined a youth club where they were on every week. So there were some big tunes, and the tunes that really take me back to those days of the school discos and the youth club discos are Kids in America, which is obviously, we got Kim Wilde in this magazine, Baggy Trousers, Swords of a Thousand Men, and obviously the greatest one ever, Ant Music. That, like, when I hear the beginning of that, I can sort of see where the youth club disco happened. And in terms of smash hits, I'd not quite started buying it. I'd got really into Adam and the Ants, watching Top of the Pops, seeing them do Dog Eat Dog. So the next issue after this one that Paul had chosen has got Adam on the front cover, and that was my very first one that I bought. Well, I didn't start buying it regularly till a little while later. So yeah, this was, the music in this issue is very familiar to me, but obviously, yeah, like I said, I'd not quite started buying smash hits at this point. I was watching Top of the Pops religiously. I just started listening to Radio 1 in the mornings as well. So Mike Reid was doing the breakfast show then. So it was all Mike Reid 275 and 285 every morning with me tea and toast. And for buying stuff, I didn't have that many records. I had started buying singles, so like the old ex-jukebox singles you'd get from the newsagents and some Adam and the Ants 7s. I had a little portable record deck of my mum's, and I'd got Kings of the Wild Frontier on cassette. And I think the only other things I had were the cheap Top of the Pops compilation albums that weren't even by the original artists. They'd be like 99p or 1.99 in Woolworths or WH Smith's. So I was very much in the building phase of my collection at that point. I was really enjoying music, but I didn't have a lot of spare cash, and I was kind of working out where to go, but I was full on into the Ants. In fact, I remember going to a school disco and I really wanted a white stripe, but I didn't have any access to anything. I might have told this story on a podcast in the past, but the only thing I could think to use was my mum's Nivea, because that was white. So before the school disco, I put like a big wodge of Nivea across my face, obviously dancing under the hot lights in the disco. And I just had a big stream of grease running down my forehead, But that's the price you pay, innit, as an Ant Warrior. So
yeah, but your skin was lovely a week later, wasn't
exactly,
it?
Yeah, so moist and fresh, yeah.
That accounts for your youthful looks today.
Well, thank you very much. It's not for me to say, that's for others, but you said it. Thank you very much, yeah. What about you, Si? Where were you and what were you up to in May 81?
I was, 7 and, if we're going to get down to the nitty gritty, 7 2/3 in May 81. And got older brothers and a sister. My sister was well into rock at this point, AC/DC and Meatloaf all the time. And she'd previously been the one who bought Smash Hits and brought it into the house, and she'd stopped getting it, so Smash Hits wasn't in my life at this point. The other brother who lived at home, he was well into the Beatles, which were kind of like a uniting factor between the three of us. And then the two eldest brothers who kind of drifted in and out with like the latest kind of soul and disco and funk stuff, but also two records that made a big impression on me around about this time were Kraftwerk, the Computer World album, and the first Human League album, which one of my brothers came home with around this time. But what really sticks in my mind from May 1981 is I went to London for the first time for the bank holiday weekend, the first one in May. And we've got relatives in London, an uncle, auntie and 3 cousins. So we all trooped down there with a trailer tent on the back of the car, stayed in a campsite somewhere on the outskirts of London. But I remember we drove down on a Saturday morning and we were driving around East London trying to find my uncle's road in Forest Gate. And we just kept getting stuck in this one-way system, going around in a loop, going past the same shops all the time. There was a record shop there, and it was emblazoned with posters for Adam and the Ants. And when we finally made it to my cousins, or to my auntie and uncle's house, the 2 youngest cousins, who were just a little bit older than me, they'd got Stand and Deliver, and they'd worked out their own dance routine for it.
Wow.
And so they'd kept us entertained with that. And then we did lots of sightseeing over that weekend, out to the Tower of London, Buckingham Palace, all that sort of thing. And it was the first time that I saw real punks on the Mall It was a blazing weekend, and my dad's got a photo of me accidentally just kind of wandering into this group of punks on the Mall, and they got like a nasty looking early ghetto blaster there. It was blasting out Swords of a Thousand Men, and they were all singing along to it, all with the cans of whatever they were drinking, and it was a bit of a riot, and I was just kind of oblivious to it all. but apart from just sort of like staring at all these Mohicans and stuff like that, so that was that was quite an eye opener for me. But looking through this issue of Smash Hits, a few records that I bought, Kim Carnes, Betty Davis Eyes, and also the Squeeze song that's in there as well, Is That Love? So, yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I could talk about from this period that's all connected with holidays and cars and records and long journeys and things like that. But I won't bore you with them. I'll save those for another time that might be more appropriate for the issue that we're looking at. But yeah, it's a time that definitely into pop music and just lots of music in general, and just absolutely loving it all. So let's get stuck into this edition of Smash Hits then, shall we? As I said earlier, it's a special double A-side edition. Stray Cats on one side, Kim Wilde on the other, and it's a bit of a battle of the hairdos between Brian and Kim, but Brian wins hand down. He's got an impossibly huge blonde quiff. The front of the mag also promises landscape in colour. That's the centre spread. But if you turn to that and have a look, I'm not sure anyone would have wanted that on their wall.
No.
Just some guys hanging around what looks like a deserted new wave bar or something. Not sure what's going on there. But if we turn over, look at the contents page, and it explains why it's a double-sided issue. It says, if you've already sneaked a peek around the back of this issue, you'll have twigged the fact that you're dealing with something out of the ordinary. So welcome, friends, to the first and the only double-sided edition of your favourite musical publication. In effect, you get 2 magazines, each with its own cover, bumper feature, song words, competition and bits section. As soon as you get fed up of poring over this half, just flip it and play the other side. Now, you may well ask why we've taken the unusual step of standing the entire magazine on its head. Well, there are a number of reasons. 1, to confuse newsagents. 2, we couldn't decide who to put on the cover. 3, in the hope that some dummies would buy it twice. 4, for laughs. So that's a little explanation there as to why I've done this. And I'll quickly run through the songs or the song lyrics that are in this issue of Smash Hits. So I might have to find some music or something to go under this. So it feels like I'm doing a proper kind of chart rundown. But anyway, you get Stand and Deliver, Adam and the Ants, Norman Bates, Landscape. Don't Let It Pass You By. There's UB40 again.
UB40, every bloody issue.
UB40. Polecats, Rockabilly Guy, Rich Kids, Ghosts of Princes in Towers. That's the request spot. Is That Love by Squeeze, one of my favourite Squeeze songs. That was possibly my favourite guitar solo ever. Betty Davis Eyes, Kim Carnes, one that I bought at the time. Being With You, Smokey Robinson. Champagne, How About Us. Funeral Pyre, The Jam. Houses in Motion, Talking Heads. The Art of Parties, Japan. Bad Reputation, Thin Lizzy. Then Belly Full, But We Hungry, Bob Marley. Angel of the Morning, Juice Newton. So that's all the songs that you get. It's absolutely packed with songs in this one. And also, alongside the usual stuff, bits, you get the cartoon, the disco section, singles and album reviews, letters, independent bits, gigs, and a few competitions and quizzes along the way.
But no pen pals.
No pen pals at this stage, no. So all you all you RSVP fans, I can't say that. All you RSVP fans, you have to wait till another time. Sorry about that. So past the lyrics for Stand and Deliver with a nice black and white shot of Adamant there.
Hang on, I must take issue with these lyrics. They're not right. It's not good. Where's the dad diddly qua qua bit at the end?
You're absolutely right. There's no dad diddly qua qua, is there?
No, there's not. Shocking.
Good fact checking there, Paul. Very good.
That's why I'm here.
But yeah. You've earned your place on the carousel, my friend. Well done.
So past the black and white shot of Adamant and into our, it's the cover feature. For this side of Smash, it's the Stray Cats. Gav, do you want to tell us what's going on here?
Certainly. So Mark Ellen has gone to France to join the Stray Cats. He's mainly talking to Brian Seltzer of the band in Nice. Not a bad little gig, that, is it? Flying out there to speak to them. They've had quite a meteoric rise to stardom. They're currently number one in the radio charts in France. And the article says they've sold out the 2,000-seater tent on the beachside there. And most of the other gigs that they've got on the tour of Europe and Scandinavia is also sold out. So they're very much in the ascendancy. Music brought him to England. Obviously, he's originally from Long Island, but he left America for the UK. And it sounds like within about a year, he was very successful and in the charts and on top of the pops and all that kind of thing. Brian says he heard the Beatles at 5, fell in love with them, bought a plastic guitar, got into the Stones, and he's saying that they even experienced their own Beatlemania in Finland when they were there recently. And yeah, he's just a pop star that's really enjoying every minute of being a pop star. You know, he's loving the life. He's having a great time.
I never knew that the Stray Cats were this popular.
Massive, weren't they?
Yeah. I mean, it seems across Europe, because over here, I mean, at this time, Shakin' Stevens was big. So I saw this as being kind of like that kind of rock and roll revival thing that my dad liked. And so because of that, I've never really paid much attention to the Stray Cats. I've got friends whose opinions and tastes that I trust and respect, who really like Brian Setzer and the Stray Cats. And it took me a while to kind of accept that there was something credible going on here. But Paul, what was your thoughts on the Stray Cats back then?
Well, this is why I picked the issue. I love the Stray Cats. I mean, I've often said that the best gig I ever went to, or one of the best gigs I ever went to, was the Stray Cats. It was a bit later because they split up and reformed, but I saw them play at the International 2 in Manchester, which is like a scuzzy sort of venue in Manchester with, you know, sweaty walls, and the place was absolutely packed, and we were up on the balcony, and it was rocking, this balcony. Felt like it was going to come down, and it was one of the best gigs I ever went to, because they are brilliant musicians. He is such a phenomenal guitarist, Brian Setzer. He's just, and you know, I know what you mean about the schwaddy waddy kind of thing, and the polecats are in here somewhere, aren't they? But I think they were if one can say that these were anyone's the real deal, I think they were. I think they were great, and you know, just a 3-piece. No, you know, you saw them play live. It was him with his stand-up drum kit and the stand-up bass, and Brian, and they were just, I thought they were great.
They look great as well, don't they? That photo, the three of them in the black and white. It's like a film still, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really high-quality photographs, and they're all quite photogenic, and they just look the part, don't they?
Definitely.
Are you a fan of other rockabilly stuff as well, Paul, or is it just really the Stray Cats that you liked?
No, well, I mean, I'd like sort of Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran kind of. I mean, Marky Smith was a big Gene Vincent fan, so it was kind of, you know, rockabilly was kind of one of the streams of the fall, which is, I was talking about this actually with my brother. It kind of came in a kind of rockabilly influence just before I joined. If you listen to the early fall, like the first album, there isn't really any kind of rockabilly kind of country kind of vibe at all. But then once Mark Riley joined, we start messing about with country and northern, if you will, and kind of rockabilly. So yeah, it was a kind of a thing. Gene Vincent and Eddie Cochran. So they were revivalists in that way, but they were really good at it, if you like. And
Mike Lee was a kind of rock and roll rockabilly guy.
He was,
wasn't he?
He was in Rockin' Ricky and the Velvet Collars. He was in. Whatever happened to them?
Where are they now?
Where are they now? Yeah, currently residing in the Where Are They Now file. But he was a proper rockabilly drummer as well. So that all happened about the same time. When they went to the second album, started getting a bit of a rockabilly influence. But it was only one of many kind of strands with the fall. Never really latched on any one kind of music, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything in particular in the article, Si or Paul, that caught your attention?
It's your standard band on tour, isn't it? Interview, I think. They you know, where they fly the journalist out and he sort of gets caught in the whirlwind. There was a lot of them then, wasn't there? I don't think you get that quite so much now. Maybe it's budgets, I don't know. Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff about tattoos at the end, isn't there? There is. Struck my eye. You wouldn't really get like half a page on the singer's tattoos now. It'd be like, you'd be surprised if a singer didn't have tattoos now, I think, but he goes into great detail.
That's true, yeah. They were a bit more unusual then, weren't they, tattoos? They were a bit more sign of a wastrel life as well, weren't they? They weren't you were a bit edgy if you had a tattoo, I think, in them days.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it does talk about the live fast, die young aspect of life in this, which kind of says, well, this, it's just kind of the rock and roll lifestyle, and that's the life that we're living. But I like how he compares the success in England and how and his observations on English culture and behaviour. So he's talking about the bands that are kind of their competitors and things like that, and he says that. The polecats say stuff about us, and the blue cats and the meteors. I hear it all, and I honestly don't give a damn. I think, he considers, that's maybe a very American thing. If someone drives by in a big Cadillac in America, everyone goes, look at that Cadillac. I'm going to get me one of them someday. In England, they just throw rocks at it.
It's the American dream writ large, isn't it?
It is.
It absolutely is. And Gavin mentioned that he talks about some of his musical influences and the Beatles and stuff like that. But he also mentions Roxy Music, which I found quite interesting as well.
I'm surprised at that.
And he says it because it was a really wild image, yet still rock and roll. So I guess that early glam period of Roxy Music is probably what he's referring to there.
That idea you said, Si, about, the thing about there being a bit of beef within the rockabilly world between the Meechers and the Blue Cats and the Polecats and the Stray Cats. They're all cats. There's a lot of cats, aren't there?
A lot of cats out there. A lot of crazy cats out there.
They're all crazy cats. And Brian talks about, this made me chuckle, where he's saying about a girl that appeared to have travelled 30 miles on a bus just for the privilege of calling him an idiot. I mean, you've got to be quite committed to do that, haven't you?
Very dedicated.
It's like a whole day's travel just to go, you're an idiot, and then go back again. But I guess it's that thing, it's sort of the after punk when, well, I don't know if it happened before, but that idea of bands sort of selling out a little bit or, not being true to the roots. Because I guess really before independent labels and stuff, maybe there wasn't that same kind of notion of being authentic and true and, not doing what you had to do to get big. But obviously, I think Brian just really wants to be a big pop star, doesn't he? Basically, like Adam Ant did, and lots and lots of other people. So there's lots of people gunning for him as well. But he's enjoying it. He's having a great time.
He seems to be, doesn't he? He does it well, doesn't he? He pulls it off. But I mean, they didn't really sell out, did they? I mean, it was a weird thing that it was a massive kind of fear for a lot of people selling out in them days. And Adam Ant was definitely seen to have sort of taken some kind of conscious decision to sell his soul between, Dirt Wears White Socks and Kings of the Wild Frontier. But what did they do, really? I mean,
it's just music, isn't it?
They didn't really do anything wrong, did they?
Yeah. But the letters pages are always full of that kind of stuff, aren't they? Both in Smash Hits and also in the weeklies. People accuse, so-and-so sold out, they've done this, they've done that. And
yeah. Big thing then. Big thing for the fall. Kay Carroll was always banging about bands selling out. Fall never sold out. Never sold anywhere.
Well, shall we have a look at Bitz, shall we? The first of, we've got Bitz in two parts, and we've also got independent Bitz a little bit later on in the mag. But here, lurking down at the bottom corner of page 12A, because there's an A-side and a B-side, don't forget. Who is it? It's Prince. It must surely be the first appearance of Prince in Smash Hits. And I think it'd been 1981, turned out to be quite a big year for him. It was later in the year. He supported the Rolling Stones in the States, but it says here that just a few words. Prince, one of the most outrageous and highly acclaimed funk stars to have emerged from America in recent years, makes his first British visit in June when he plays London's Lyceum on the 2nd of the month. 21-year-old Prince, who plays 26 instruments, not all at once, has been known to take the stage wearing black bikini briefs, high-heeled boots and black thigh-high stockings, all at once. Which I think is pretty much what he's wearing in this in this photo as well.
But it's a bold look for your first photo in Smash Hits, isn't it?
It certainly is.
I mean, Paul, you didn't wear something like that for your first picture, did you?
Very rarely, no. It was much later when I started getting to that kind of stuff.
The bikini briefs and the thigh-high stockings.
It's quite frightening look, I think. It was quite startling at the time, wasn't it? When he first started appearing, there was something. I'm not sure seedy's the right word, but he was a strange. He was kind of a bit Rick Jamesy, wasn't he? I suppose, but there was definitely a feeling of this guy's a bit of a weirdo.
Yeah, but overtly sexual as well. Yeah. Which especially when you compare this to the other photos that are on this particular page, which is Kraftwerk. looking all nice and smart in their suits. And then underneath that, Kraftwerk's robots. It says, the pioneers of electronic rock, the German quartet Kraftwerk, released their first album in 3 years this month. Computer World, as the title suggests, is a series of observations on the effects that microchippery is having on modern life. Titles like Home Computer, Computer Love, and the single Pocket Calculator, which is actually played on Texas and Casio calculators with a musical note facility, indicate the drift of their songs. And then it's got a little photo, like I say, a photo of the robots with the caption, "Send in the clones." Pocket Calculator was on my local radio station an awful lot, and I guess at 7 years old it was a bit of a novelty record, but like I said, one of my brothers brought home the LP, put it on one side of a C90, and I listened to that non-stop. One of the tracks used to scare the hell out of me. Numbers with the strange voices saying the numbers in different languages and stuff. But it says here about their robots. Their new record label, EMI, have released photographs of chillingly lifelike Kraftwerk androids, which the band have been building over the past few months. It's these automata, and not the band, who are supposed to be performing on stage, while the musicians, so the rumours go, will be watching from the comfort of a dressing room via video. Kraftwerk have come across to play some live dates, but they're sending out the robots instead.
Why didn't they just stay at home?
Yeah.
Well, it says that was the original plan, wasn't it, to stay at home? They were going to play the music from the Kling Klang studio in Dusseldorf and relay it around the world via a series of satellites. But then I think the technology didn't work. But I thought that was quite interesting because in this lockdown world, we're all kind of doing something similar, aren't we, really? You know, and they were kind of quite ahead of the curve there.
Oh, yeah. Well, they were massively, weren't they? I mean,
yeah, in many, many ways.
In many ways, yeah.
But yeah, those automata, they are quite chilling as well, aren't they? There's something kind of Doctor Who-ish about them and a little bit unsettling.
Yeah.
In a different way to Prince, but equally unsettling, I think.
Well, you've got the future here on this page, haven't you?
Yeah.
Prince and Kraftwerk, that's it.
Yeah, you're right. That's very much the blueprint for the 80s, 90s and beyond, you know.
And I can absolutely envisage as well a Kraftwerk Zoom call with each of them in a little box. Because if you have seen them live, they stand at the little podium, so, not much different than that. But yeah, I saw them about 3 years ago, I think, in Sheffield, and they're all stood at these little podiums. They're all, reaching over and pressing this and pressing that. I mean, for all I know, one of the guys could have been doing his shopping list on Tesco, just like, oh, right, which toilet rolls are on offer this week? I'll add them ones.
I know someone who saw them on every night of that tour. I said, why? Surely it's exactly the same every night. He said, oh, completely different every night. I'm not convinced. I think he might have been having me on, actually.
Surely, yeah.
Yeah. And then on the next page of Bitz, well, a bit of a blast from the past, really, to contrast with that future. And a photo of Ron and Russell from Sparks in boxing gear.
Yeah.
Ron being held in some sort of grip by Russell while the referee's trying to separate them. It all looks rather uncomfortable. And there's an advert for them a few pages earlier that looks like a boxing advert, a boxing poster as well, and it's all for their new LP, Whomp That Sucker. And it says, study the above snap. Hardly action-packed, is it? Looks more like the winners of a vertical sleeping contest, one of whom is treading on the umpire's toe. By all accounts, the real occasion was actually quite eventful, it being 3 furious bouts between Ron and Russell Mail, Sparks to the well-informed, to assist the sales of their new and purposefully titled LP, Whomp That Sucker. Cheerleaders at the Hilton Hotel ringside included Clem Burke and Nigel Harrison of Blondie, Department S, Yellow Magic Orchestra, Steve Strange, Rusty Egan, and various Bell Stars, which is a phrase that you'll see appearing in Smash Hits quite a lot for a couple of years. Various Bell Stars. A whale of a time was had by all, bar Ron, he's the one with the football moustache, 11 aside, who ended up with a broken rib. Oh well, at least the other ones were all right.
Did that really happen?
Well, I did a bit of digging on this, actually, because I've got a friend who's a big Sparks fan, and I asked him, and he said he could find no evidence of it. And I looked online, and there was no other mention of it, so I think that might just be a bit of PR stuff going on there. I mean, I can't imagine they would have taken it that seriously, that they would have been whacking each other that hard to break one of them rib. I mean, they were brothers, for God's sake, I mean, would you and Steve have done that?
No.
No.
Definitely not. But it looks like it's been set up for just... But God bless them, Smash Hits have fallen for it hook, line and sinker, haven't they?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but also if you watch the video for Tips for Teens, which is on the playlist, Pop Kids, that's a boxing match as well, where the referee looks a bit like George Bush. But that aside, there are a couple of sort of hits in that where they're kind of jabbing at each other, where it does look like they're actually giving each other a bit of a wallop. So maybe they did or not, but most of it is kind of play fighting.
Maybe there's a bit of beef going on there, you know.
I never like that moustache. I can't believe he got away with it. I can't believe he got away with standing there playing the keyboards looking like Hitler. I don't think you get away with it now. I don't think.
No, I think you're right.
Well, I think he only gets away with it now because he's been doing it for...
Yeah, I know, yeah, but I mean, if you had whatever the equivalent of Top of the Pops is and the keyboard player was dressed like Hitler, I think somebody might say something.
Yeah, I found him terrifying. I couldn't look when he was on as a kid because it wasn't just the moustache, but he always did that creepy look to camera, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
And he used to send shivers up my spine. I'm still slightly traumatized. I mean, I really like Sparks, but I can't watch those old appearances. They creep me the hell out, you know. We move on a couple of pages and we come to the comic strip Zitty Ben, which I'd never heard of at all before we started the podcast until the issue where we had a bit of interaction with David Titlow from Blue Mercedes, and he talked about his cousin being the artist behind Zitty Ben, but it still didn't ring any bells at the time. And I think this is the first issue we've done where this comic strip has been part of it. I read through it a few times. Got to say, it didn't really make any bloody sense at all to me. So
what the hell is that about?
Is this something you remember, Paul? Do you remember this?
No. I don't. I remember there used to be good. I think was it Record or Disc used to have cartoons and they were quite funny. But this one makes no sense to me whatsoever.
No, to me,
I don't understand it.
It's like the equivalent of Doonesbury that used to be in the Guardian or the Independent or whatever. And I used to look at that and I'd be like, I don't understand it. I've read it 5 times. I still don't know what it means. And I'm exactly the same with Zitty Ben. So I had a look online for Mark Castro. Like I said, we knew that he's the cousin of David from Blue Mercedes, but no other information did I know. The first hit I found on the internet was that Mark Castro is the author of a book called When Misfits Become Kings and Liar, Exposing Myths in Spiritual Warfare. And he's the pastor of the Shepherd's Tent Church in Covington, Georgia. So I thought, well, it's probably not that one. So I had a bit more digging. And
that's quite a career change there.
Yeah, that would be a bit of a career change, wouldn't it? Yeah, because on this website, it said that he was a husband, father of 3 and a pastor, and that his writing flows from life experiences and encounters with Jesus. And it didn't really seem to fit the brief for Zitty Ben, that. So I found another blog which collected the old strips, and there's also a link to something called Astro Castro, which is his blog on astrophotography, photos of the stars. So that's him. But I know, Si, you'd got a bit of information you sent me earlier on today.
Yeah, well, I found the same website that you found, where he's collected together all the Zitty Ben strips from over the time that he did them. And I don't know if you have to go back to the beginning to read them. Like some things you have to start from the beginning to make sense. So maybe, just dropping in kind of 6 months into Zitty Ben's appearance in Smash Hits means that, we're kind of not getting the full story here.
Yeah, perhaps we're doing Zitty Ben a disservice.
But he just, under the very first post on his blog with the very first strip, Mark's written, way back in 1980, as a young cartoonist and working for the music paper Smash Hits, I created a cartoon strip called Strange Tales from a Music Paper. It began as a story of the staff of the magazine. Then I brought in a character called Zitty Ben, a spotty youth who wanted to make something of his life. At first, I was only going to let the cartoon run for a few strips, but when I was going to kill him off and do other stuff, I got a ton of fan mail demanding that Zitty was not killed off. And so Zitty was to carry on for the rest of the life of the cartoon strip.
Very strange.
So this is presumably where they killed him off, because he dies in this. He's not in it, is he, Zitty Ben? He's dead by the beginning of the strip. If you can follow it.
I think so, yeah. There's a pile of ash, isn't there? And then it also says these 2 piles are what's left of the dickheads. And I was quite surprised to see the word dickheads in Smash Hits in 1981. So moving on from Zitty Ben, on the next page, we've got a lovely little quarter-page picture of some Adam gear. I always really wanted to get some of that stuff. I was never brave enough. You can buy an Adam jacket or some PVC trousers. But, I never did.
Yeah, remarkably cheap. £9.90 for an Adam jacket.
I know. It must be like all plastic, mustn't it?
Yeah.
Surely. Did you ever make any bizarre and outre fashion statements with any of this kind of stuff, Paul?
I did. Unfortunately, yes. The old Tucker boots was one that I was unfortunately got on the ground floor of. I don't know if you remember tucker boots. They were like suede. Sort of, they just sort of went past your ankle, but they had wooden soles, so they were absolutely lethal in winter. You'd take one step and slip another 15 yards. They were deadly. So you could wear. I used to have a pair of them, and you wear them with like the socks, like then Kilimanjaro Tirab explodes.
Oh
You
yeah,
have big white socks like a pilot. Unfortunately, there is photographic evidence of me wearing them. I'm afraid, but it wasn't the worst faux pas in the world.
presumably before you were in the fall.
No.
Oh,
There's
really?
a picture of this is before I was in the foot. No, but I wasn't wearing them in 1979. No, there's a picture of me wearing them big pilot socks and looking very, very silly indeed. But funnily enough, it was one of the last things I ever did with the foot. I don't think that's why I got my marching orders, but.
I'd just like to alight briefly on page 19A and the disco column. Counts down the disco top 40. Number 1 is Star Sound and Stars on 45, a record that I did buy at the time. I think this would have been the Beatles medley. And in the column, Bev Hillier is writing about albums, not necessarily tracks that are in the disco chart. And she mentions the Star Sound album. She says, by now, you're bound to be familiar with Star Sound and their Stars on 45 single. Well, here comes an album consisting of 61 crummy cover versions, all segued together with bass drums and hand claps in order to give it that supposedly funky feel. By the end of the album, the party atmosphere is beginning to fray at the edges, worth buying only for the pleasure to be had by breaking it.
That's far from complimentary.
As someone who later bought the album, I can confirm that would have been a good way to finish listening to that album. Would have been to just take it off the turntable and give it a good smashing up.
So skipping on a few more pages, we come to the singles reviews by Steve Bush. He reviews 17 singles. There's no single of the week, but he blasts through them. Positive reviews for Tony Basil's Mickey. Papa's Got a Brand New Pig Bag by Pig Bag. Singles by The Bureau and Fisher Z. Slightly less positive reviews for Susie and the Banshees, Spellbound, Splodgeness Abounds, The Expressos, Split Ends, and The Rhythm Slaves. I was particularly drawn to Coty Mundy. And Firmino Popeye, he calls it a rapping disco funk stomp, whatever that means, with some of this year's best lyrics. So I checked into the lyrics to find what some of this year's best lyrics were. Here's a little example. Sure your love was there, like a dandruff in my hair, like pollution in the air, like a fruit fly on a pear. But I don't really care. I throw my hands in the air and I step round to the music like a Fred Astaire.
Like a Fred Astaire.
Like a.
Not the Fred Astaire.
No, just one of the many Fred Astaires. There's a lot of them around, So, they were good lyrics. But that's a great tune, that Coty Mundy one.
It is.
Paul, anything there that grabs you?
Well, there's something that intrigues me, because one of the reviews here is for I Want More by Can. Now, when I first saw that, I said, I'm sure that was earlier than that. And I've looked, and as far as I can see, and I'm not an expert, but I've dabbled in Can a few times, that album came out in 1976. That's got I Want More on. So why is it a single in 1981?
Just got reissued for some reason.
But I mean, it's not. If you look into it, it doesn't get mentioned that it was re-released in 81. I don't think it was a hit or anything. It was a hit. It was on Top of the Pops the first time round, I think.
Yeah, but the second time it wasn't, was it? And you just think, why? Yeah. Like you say, why release it? I don't think it was the soundtrack to any TV shows, was it? Or on an advert. Or, I have no memories of it at all.
None at all. Absolutely none.
It seems very strange.
Yeah, and it's not even mentioned that it's been out previously or anything like that. He just, he's just kind of blasting through these reviews. It doesn't like the Hot Chocolate single either.
I'm not familiar with that Hot Chocolate single.
No.
I mean, I like a bit of Hot Chocolate. Don't get me wrong. I think they had some great singles, but I'm not familiar with that one. This Marty Wilde, isn't it, wrote it?
That's right.
Apparently.
Yeah, that's what it says. Marty and Ricky Wilde, Kim's father and brother respectively, find themselves with hot chocolate on their hands. If I was them, I'd wipe it off quick.
So I think Steve Bush, I think it's fair to say that he gets a few things wrong. When he's talking about Susie and the Banshees, he says that the recent singles lack the commercial edge that produces hits. I wonder how long they'll keep trying. But I mean, this one got to number 22 and, they did go for they had a long chart life, didn't they, the Banshees? So
yeah.
He definitely got that one wrong.
Spellbound's fantastic as well. What's he talking about?
I know, right? It's a quality tune, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, he also talks about the Bureau and he kind of compares them to Dexys. Obviously, there was a lot of crossover with some of the ex-Dexys members, but he said that the singing's much better than Kevin Rowland's Strangled Whining, which again I think is a little harsh.
I don't like this guy. Who is he? Don't like this guy.
I think he was the art director, wasn't he, Steve Bush? And
Right.
he became the editor of the magazine for a little while in the mid-80s. Oh, hello.
Yep.
That's a very loud backfiring motorbike going past on the main road. Can we keep that in?
I mean, the Bureau were Dexys, weren't they? They were most of the first album.
Yeah, there was quite a few ex-members.
There was. Not Al Archer and not Jimmy, but the rest of them, I think. If you want to get too specific, I can't give you the names, but
We've got a little bit more of the rockabilly as well there, haven't we? We've got Coast to Coast, because we were talking about Stray Cats and the Polecats and the Meteors and all the other cat bands. But yeah, Coast to Coast doing Let's Jump the Broomstick in there.
Well, it says, in the tradition of darts, but minus the style and imagination.
That's proper damning that, isn't it?
first band I ever saw live, Darts.
All right.
All I can say is they did give value for money because there's about 35 of them.
So where and when?
Free Trade Hall. 19. I mean, it's a bit of a shame, really, because the next two bands I saw were Buzzcocks and Blondie. So if I could have just, I mean, you know, singing out of Darts plays on Sandinista, he sings on Sandinista. They weren't that lacking in credibility, I don't think. But, well, yeah, they were. Sorry, I'm lying. They were completely lacking in credibility. But I don't know why I'd latched onto them. I don't know why. I mean, that was. I mean, they were past. They were finished by 81, but they had 1978. They were riding high in the charts. Come Back, My Love, Boy from New York City.
Oh, we've reached the halfway point.
Landscape.
Ah,
Would anyone like to sort of take us through this this vision of landscape here, which is actually in portrait for a start? So it's not even in landscape because you have to turn it on its side to make it into a poster.
a portrait picture of landscape. Very good. Very good.
Go on, Paul, describe what we can see.
Yeah. So landscape were definitely reinventing themselves as new romantic, weren't they? Because I think I might be right. This guy at the front here, who's got slightly convincing haircut, he was a producer as well. He produced Spandau Ballet. Richard somebody, I think his name is.
Richard Burgess.
Yes, that's the chap. Yeah, so they obviously thought there was some mileage in going new romantic. But the guy on the right was having none of it, was he? Yeah, I don't care what you say about them frilly shirts. I'm not wearing them and I'm not doing my hair and I'm certainly not shaving off my moustache.
I've had this year, so I'm not getting rid of it.
Yeah, it took me a long time to grow this. He's growing hair where he can, let's face it.
Yeah. I can't do a beard, can't do my head. I'm keeping the tash.
You're not taking this off me, Burgess. I mean, the rest of the band have really bought into it, aren't they? There's some pink pixie boots there and a very blue blouson. And,
yeah, it is very blue.
And the lad behind, he's got his little neckerchief, and it's very 80s because it's got Venetian blinds, and that's a very much a trope of early 80s, isn't it?
And they've not done a very good job on the shine control either. They're all looking very shiny.
Oh no,
They are. I cannot believe that anybody put this on their wall. I'm not having it.
Even the mothers of landscape would have not put this on the wall.
Oh,
No.
Our son, I'm not putting that up. So yeah, we've reached that halfway point of the mag, which means it's time to close it, flip it, and turn it round as well. And we get a new front with Kim Wilde looking at us. Kim just sort of looking a bit sullen and sulky on a nice kind of a pinky purple background. We get a contents page again. They mean business with this second side of Smash Hits. And the lyrics to the Jam's Funeral Pyre, actually I didn't check that. Has it got the... it has got the pissing in there. I didn't know whether it
It's
would
got
have.
the pissing, yeah.
Yeah.
First thing I checked for that.
Yeah. I imagine that word that cost them quite a bit of airplay because this is sort of like the Lost Jam single in a way. People don't seem to remember this.
I don't think they picked up on the fact that it could swear. It's fairly murky. You can't pick it out very easily. I think they still played it
Yeah.
I don't think it got picked up on the fact that they were saying pissing themselves laughing.
Yeah, Weller always buried his vocals a lot, didn't he? And the way he
Yeah.
enunciated himself it was often hard to hear what he was singing. But
Yeah.
where did this get, Si? I don't remember it being a massive hit, this one, anyway. Go on, have a look in your book, lad.
I think it was the number one, you know.
Was it?
It wasn't. Funeral Pyre wasn't number one.
No, it wasn't, was it?
Surely not.
I don't know, number 4.
Okay, higher than I thought.
Yes, it didn't do so bad then, did it?
Do beg your pardon there. But still, he seems to be, seems to be one of the less remembered of their singles. One of my favourites.
Great drumming on this. Absolutely fabulous drumming on this.
That kind of last 30 seconds of it.
Yeah.
Tremendous.
Brilliant.
Talking about drummers and stuff like that, was anybody that you particularly looked up to, Paul?
Yeah, there was a few, yeah. Well, there was the Manchester Three. So there was Carl Burns, who was the drummer in the Fall, the one before me, and then there was Steve Morris from Joy Division, New Order, and John Marr from Buzzcocks. So they were all just slightly older than me, but they were like my 3 favourite drummers, and they were all sort of metaphorically on my doorstep. And then Clem Burke as well. He was brilliant, wasn't he? I mean, what a fabulous drummer he was. And I think he influenced John Marr quite a lot. But they were the 3 that I looked up to. I mean, I did like Rick Buckler's drumming. And I always liked that drum solo we did down in the tube station. That was pretty good, wasn't it? We always had lovely toms, big ones, dead eye up. This is the only one he gets a credit on this, by the way. This is the only co-write they ever released, I think. So it's credited to them all.
Oh, yeah. Good spotting. You're good at fact-checking, you, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say, as a drummer, when you watch other bands on telly or you're at gigs and stuff, do you spend a lot of time checking out what the drummer's doing and trying to get little tips or,
I do check out what they're doing. I don't tend to watch, see go to a gig as do my own work. I try and avoid that if I can. You just want to watch the band really, but you do find yourself drawn to the drummer, particularly if he's not very good. That's really annoying. And if he's great, then I find that hard to ignore as well. But I'd much rather go for a mediocre drummer than a bad drummer, obviously.
But what I want to know is, and we're talking about the early 80s when synth drums were starting to come in. Did you ever have any synth drums, and did you ever have the one that went boo boo like that?
I didn't, but as I was mentioning Steve Morris, he had one. Yeah. And he had this syndrome, and he had 2 sounds, basically. It had the boo boo, the Love Don't Live It Anymore. Yeah. And it had one that sounded like you were in a metal tin, like, which he uses on She Lost Control. So that was pretty much all he did. Yeah. So he does that on my minute, but yeah. So they were the only 2 things he did, and then the first one I remember was when, funnily enough, Spandau Ballet. He had a kit, then he had a Simmons kit, where they were like the first ones I remember, and he had a full Simmons kit.
So they're the kind of hexagonal ones.
The hexagonal ones, and the first ones that came out of them, they weren't padded. It was like hitting a kitchen table. They were absolutely horrendous to play. I mean, I never had one. I couldn't have afforded one even if I'd wanted to. But I played a couple in shops, and they must have jarred your spine playing them. I don't know how he did it, because they were just like hitting a solid piece of wood. Awful.
And thinking about the sorts of studios that you used to go in with the Fall in those days, it was all about the drum sound in the early 80s music.
I think you're mistaking us for a different band. I don't think.
I know. Just bear with me. So talking about the drum sound, they spend days setting up the drums. All that Phil Collins gated snare and stuff. What was the Fall approach to recording the drums?
Well, we did a bit of that. You did a bit of that where you got 35 minutes hitting the tom, but the one I remember is we went in this guy called Grant Showbiz who produced the Fall. He built his own studio in a squat in London, and it was in the cellar, and there was only room to put so you obviously have baffles around the kit to separate the sound, but there wasn't room to take them down again. So once I was in there, they put these baffles up, and that was it. I was in there for the day. Couldn't let me out. I was in there about 6 hours, and there was obviously no air conditioning. Well, they didn't have a toilet, so the chances of having air conditioning was pretty low. So that was it. I was stuck in there for the whole day. But it sounds all right. That's Container Drivers we did in there. A song called Container Drivers. The drums sound all right on that, I think.
Yeah.
Was anybody passing? It was a gap to pass through like a sandwich.
There was a gap to pass the odd glass of water. Yes, that was it. Yeah. Good times.
The next time I listen to that song, I shall be picturing that now.
Think of me, yes. Please do.
Trapped behind the baffles. So we go from, well, talking about a recording studio in a squat to Rack Studios just next to Regent's Park in St John's Wood in London. And Smash Hits have gone to see Kim Wilde, who's recording there. She's signed to the same record label as well, Mickey Mouse record label. And the title of the piece is Wildlife.
Oh, how long did that take?
Didn't work hard on that one, did they?
Yeah. Yeah. What shall we call this one? But I think it may have been the first big feature that they've done on Kim Wilde in the mag. So I'll kind of let them off doing it the first time. If they did it again, if they repeated this, then words need to be had. But it's Johnny Black talking to Kim, like I say, at the recording studio, Rack Studios in London. And I think she's very keen to prove the point that she's not just some kind of airhead pop star puppet or some kind of spoilt pop brat, being as she is the daughter of a pop star, and her brother also tried to launch his own pop career in the 70s as well. And she says here, I don't think anybody's impressed by daughters of famous people. They expect you to be spoilt, mindless and untalented. And sometimes they're right. I hope I'm not like that. So she's trying to paint herself, in a way, quite down to earth, but advanced for her age. And talking about, obviously she's from a musical family. She's saying there's always music being played around the house. And this caught my attention. She says, there's always a lot of music in the house. I tend to listen to albums. I play Another Green World by Brian Eno a lot, and Joni Mitchell. I try to keep my tastes wide, and it's always changing. But I'll eternally respect the two Elvises, Aretha Franklin and Chuck Berry. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting that she listens to Brian Eno's Another Green World quite a lot. Whether she's dropping that in there for a bit of cred or not, I don't know. But it's my favourite Brian Eno album, so I'm not going to argue.
No.
Yeah, I was quite surprised at that. But I can't imagine, because she seems very grounded and not someone that's particularly after any credibility. So it seems genuine to me, that, I think.
Yeah.
And she says as well that, it says that her taste in men's clothes ransacks from Oxfam shops, her outspoken opinions and a range of interests beyond the music that runs from Japanese koi fish to cookery and impressionist painting, all testify to her being more than just another member of the all-singing, all-dancing Wild Bunch.
He said, same pun again. Same pun again.
You got to work it. And she also gives a Top of the Pops a bit of a dressing down as well, because apparently she sang live on Top of the Pops. They did an all-live edition, and she said that show needed a kick up the arse, didn't it? Putting it out live made a real difference. Best thing that happened to it in years. I prefer the European shows where they seem better organised. You can do little bits of comedy routines.
I think that quote, up until the bit where she talks about comedy routines on European TV shows, if someone said it was a Marquis Smith quote, you'd go, oh yeah, it sounds like it, about giving them a kick up the arse, and, it's much better doing it live and all that,
Yeah.
It's quite refreshing coming at these two interviews with Stray Cats and Kim Wilde, because often with the issues that Si and I have done from sort of later on in the 80s, we say, don't we, Si, always that there's always one where one of the pop stars is really pissed off about something. The record label or Top of the Pops didn't play it, or Radio 1 have done something, or another band, they've got beef with another band, or money or something. But with both the Stray Cats and Kim Wilde, they both seem very grounded. They're really enjoying what they're doing. They're just having a great time, loving the music, loving where they're at. And, it's quite refreshing to see that it's all positive and there's no downside to it. That's what struck me,
I think later on, bands started being like that because that was like what Smash Hits wanted. I think that how powerful Smash Hits. I mean, you get the Take That's of this world. They were kind of built to be a Smash Hits band in some kind of ways, weren't they? They were always really positive and really enjoying it, or they seemed to be. It seemed to be about making pop fun again, I think. There's so many times you can read about UB40 moaning about everything, isn't there? I mean,
oh God, yeah, once is enough.
How did you know we were talking about UB40?
Well, I've read interviews with them before, and they're just, but get a job in a shop, mate. What is the problem? They're just, I don't know. There's something about UB40. They were always miserable, weren't they?
It's not just us, Si. We're not the only ones who've picked up on it. Thank God, Paul. Thank God. No, it's always our joke that they're just, every interview with them. And they're in every issue. They've got a single out every week, haven't they?
Yeah, it seems like that.
Yeah. I think there's quite an interesting bit where the interviewer says that tucked away inside the streetwise aggressive kid who struts on top of the pops are layers of other characters. There's a sensible business mind ticking away constantly. There's a loner who adores the 1930s film idol Greta Garbo. There's also a future mum and a great cook. I found that jarred a bit because she didn't talk about being a mother at all, and they've just decided, oh yeah, she'll be a mum one day.
That's really odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a really odd comment, that.
I mean, she does talk about cookery, so that's fair enough. She talks about cooking a meal for the band. And they all come round and she's made him a meal. I'm presuming Mark never did that for the lads.
No. He made the odd crisp sandwich, but
okay.
That was about it.
Yeah, I mean, because that putting that in there does kind of jar slightly with something that she says earlier when it's talking about she did a foundation course in arts at college, and it says, Kim became aware of how the establishment favours the male of the species. You're painfully aware of the lack of women painters. Colleges have mainly male tutors who give the blokes the majority of their time, so they get the best places in art schools. It's partly that if a woman wants to have kids, she can't follow a career as well. And so, it kind of jars with that a little bit. That,
Bless her, she'll make a great mum one day.
Yeah. Oh.
Once her pop career's over.
Yeah.
She'll be a lovely mother.
Yeah, like I say, it jarred a little bit.
Yeah.
And just didn't fit very well with the young, independent woman that she clearly is. She's not wanting to be poked and shoved around and pigeonholed or anything like that. She's quite willing to play the pop game, but she's also got a very strong sense of who she is and her part in that, which I think is quite healthy for her, and probably why she's one of the pop stars from that time who's probably managed to remain sane over the years. But you do get a little glimpse because isn't she like into gardening and stuff now?
She is.
Yeah.
And the piece ends with, my perfect world would have a river flowing through it, beautiful trees, lots of greenery, fish ponds. And then she goes a bit off the gardening theme, and everyone wearing white, drinking champagne on ice. But just for one day.
I know.
I really like normal life. If you can be happy with what you do, then that's the most idyllic way to be alive. How sensible, how normal. Seriously. That's how the piece ends.
Yeah, I thought she came across really, really well in that. And like I say, just very grounded and not trying to be anyone else at all, but just being herself and being a bit of a showbiz trooper, I guess, knowing the value of a bit of entertainment. Obviously, she'd grown up in that family, but doesn't come across as spoil or, any of that stuff. Just, I got a lot of respect for her, Fair dues. And Kids in America is a great tune, so,
It is a great song.
And then moving on to the second dose of bits that we've got in the magazine. A few interesting things on here. We've got a tape label that Rough Trade have just started called Rough Tapes, which is the cassette label offshoot of Rough Trade. And they've just brought out a compilation called C81, which is 81 minutes of music, and obviously it's from 1981, retailing at £3.75. 24 tracks including Ian Jury, The Raincoats, Scritti Politti, The Beat, Robert Wyatt, Pere Ubu, John Cooper Clarke, Orange Juice, Wah Heat, Buzzcocks, and another 14 others. I thought this was quite interesting because obviously eventually the C81 idea would kind of go forward and there'd be C86, and that was kind of the start of a whole kind of musical indie movement. I had a look at Rough Tapes on Discogs because it wasn't a label that I remembered. Obviously Rough Trade is very, very famous, but I didn't think Rough Tapes had gone on very long. And no, indeed they hadn't. There was only 11 releases altogether. There's a live Psychic TV album, and there's actually a fall promo release. I don't know if you're aware of that, Paul.
Oh no, what's on it?
No, it was the Fall on one side and a band called World Service, who I'd never heard of before. On the other, it was a promo release.
What song is it?
I think it might be. I think you mentioned Container Drivers before. I think that might be on it. I didn't.
Okay.
I've not written down. There's like 3 or 4 tracks, which I guess was to be sent out to radio stations across the world. I guess I don't know, but
never heard of that.
I never got past the promo stage. That
right.
And we've also got Spandau Ballet. We mentioned Spandau Ballet and the Syndromes earlier on, and they've taken New York, if not by storm, certainly by a gentle breeze. They had a gig that they played. Quite a few people there, including Mick Ronson, a talking head. We don't know which one, but one of the talking heads, presumably not David Byrne. They'd have mentioned if it was him, I guess. Billy Idol, to name but a few. And also, intriguingly, this is what really caught my eye, Francis Ford Coppola was there. Apparently he really loved the Muscle Bound video.
I find that hard to believe.
I know. Again, that might be just a bit of PR fluff that Smash Hits have fallen for there. I think maybe someone in the Spandau Ballet camp said, oh no, Francis Ford's a big fan of Muscle Bound. I find that very, very difficult to believe. Also, the Fall get a mention on this page, the Fall Foundation. So there's a little bit with fan clubs, and there's you're in good company there, Paul. There's Japan, the Beat, Spandau Ballet again, care of Vicky Sylvester.
Yeah.
And the Fall Foundation, 429B, Bury New Road, Salford 7, Lancashire.
Remember it well. I remember that office very well.
Yeah, rehearsal rooms and office, yeah.
Well, yes, it wasn't a rehearsal room. It was a really run-down, crappy office, and City Life had the office downstairs. I don't know, City Life were a Manchester sort of listings, a bit like Time Out, but for Manchester. So they were downstairs, but they didn't mind the racket. But I mean, most of the time we spent was going over to the house that Jack built, which was the pub across the road. But so we had two drummers in there in 429B Bury New Road. So we must have made a right racket.
God, yeah.
So I don't think there was much going on in that block of shops. They can't have been, because we'd have been kicked out.
Oh, was that just across the way from the precinct, like the little Prestwich precinct? Or was it a bit further?
No, it was a bit further down. It was a bit further back towards centre of Manchester.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So if people had written to this, what would they have got in return? Can you remember?
Well, it's interesting you could say that, because we did write back. We basically, every now and again, Mark would give us a few letters and say, write back to them. And one of the people who got a reply and who still got the letter, Stuart Lee, who got a letter back from Steve, funnily enough. And Bob Stanley, I sent him a letter, apparently, so I'm led to believe later on. I replied to his letter and sent him a letter and a poster, and he's still got the poster. He's lost the letter, though. Nice, isn't it? Never kept the letter, but never mind. So, I mean, I don't know how much we did reply, but it seems quite weird that those two people still remember it. But we must have also a few people. But it was very haphazard. It was like now and again he'd give us a few letters and say reply to them. But there was nothing. There was no fan club then. I think the Fall had a fan club later on. I think.
Yeah, they did.
But then that wasn't really a fan. The Fall Foundation was just write us a letter. We might send you one back. I think that's as far as it went.
I do like the idea though of some kid coming across this in Smash Hits and writing to you, and then just one of you getting the letter and randomly writing back.
Yeah. That's basically how it works, yeah. So doesn't it seem really weird that the Fall are in there then? Why? I mean, if you look, also, who are we going to have? Well, we'll have Spandau Ballet, obviously. We'll go maybe Japan there coming up now, but then the Fall. That seems really odd to me.
Yeah. It is very random, that, isn't it? But I mean, that's the thing about Smash Hits, isn't it? And particularly the Bitz pages, is you just get an absolute cross-section of everything that's going on musically, across the landscape. Yeah. So, it kind of fits in that way. But yeah, I know what you mean. It does seem a little incongruous.
If it was the Desperate Bicycles and, or something, and then the Fall, you could say fair enough. But Japan, the Beat, Spandau Ballet and the Fall seems really odd.
Strange bedfellows.
Yeah, indeed.
And talking of the Fall, we can move on to Invicta Radio. And the reason I mentioned the Fall is there's a great song that mentions Essence of Tongue on a later Fall album. And I found out doing a bit of research on the Invicta radio station, the pirate radio station, that Pete Tong got his first ever gig on Invicta in the late 70s. So Invicta was filled with the Essence of Tongue. It was basically a soul radio station from London. They said that they had around about 20,000 listeners, which, is not too shabby, I'd say.
No.
Filling a gap, saying that no one was playing soul back in the day when they started. They were going from 1969 originally and finally went off air in 1984. I like Pete Silverton does the piece about them, and he says, it moves with the same loose-limbed strut and jive as the black music they spin. The DJs are young, super knowledgeable soul enthusiasts, touched with the fever of keeping the faith. The dedications are delightful messages to the likes of the Southall Funketeers and the Paddington Funk Set. It's the fastest, brightest, coolest 4 hours on British radio. So I guess it probably seemed quite edgy at the time, having pirate radio. I mean, I never listened to any. I don't really remember listening to any at all. But Paul's side, do you have any memories of pirate radio? Did you ever come across much?
No, not at all. I'm trying to think. I wouldn't. If you'd have said to me there was still pirate radio stations in the 80s, I'd have been surprised, to be honest. Because I mean, there's the big one in the 60s that all got subsumed into Radio 1 eventually. I didn't know there was still pirate radio then. Was it legal? Well, it can't have been. I mean,
No, it says in the piece it was illegal.
Yeah, very much illegal. Yeah, I mean, they used to do it from like tower block. I mean, certainly in London, it'd be from tower blocks, and they'd have a transmitter on the roof, and all kind of homemade electronic stuff and transmitters and things, and always getting raided and things like that. No, I didn't encounter pirate radio until I moved to London. It was still very much active in the mid 90s, and well up until I left London. Probably about 10 years later. You'd be listening to, whatever station you were listening to, a bit of Radio 3, for example, getting all cultured. Then all of a sudden you'd have some beats come in, crashing it and stuff. I mean, all that's kind of been paid to by digital radio, because you don't get that crossover of frequencies, like, where things bleed together like they do on FM. So we flick a few pages and we get to the letters page. The first few, or quite a few of them, concerned with the cover stars from a few weeks previous. Teardrop explodes, and the second letter down says, "At last your magazine has something worth buying it for. The Teardrop Explodes feature, April 30th. Let's have something like this more often, and some more colour pictures of Julian Cope, as he is so beautiful, and if by chance he reads this, if you publish it, then he should know that there is nothing wrong with his body. I think he is just perfect, and with his wonderful voice, what more could he want? How about also printing a picture of his wife, as I've heard a rumour that she looks like Adamant, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone."
What?
What the fuck?
Now then, does Dorian Cope look like Adamant? I'm sure she doesn't.
I don't think so.
I'm sure she doesn't.
Pretty sure she doesn't.
She has got that big white stripe across her face, hasn't she?
Well, I don't know if he'd have been married to Dorian at that point, or whether it'd been his first wife. But the next letter down from that claims to be Joe Callis, formerly of what it says, ex-Rosillos, ex-Shake, ex-Boots for Dancing, ex-Human League. So currently of the Human League. A very strange letter, and whoever's editing the letters on this has said, "Joe, is that really you? Joe, knock once for yes, knock twice for no." So I doubt it is really Joe Callis of the Human League.
I'm not convinced. I think it is.
Do you reckon it is?
I do, yeah, because obviously there's some kind of in-joke where Adrian Wright, who couldn't play anything at all because he did the slides and all the visuals, in an interview saying that he taught Joe Callis to play keyboards, and then Joe Callis has got his own back by writing into the paper. Now, surely I can't. The only makes me think that it really is him. Who else would be bothered doing it?
Was Joe Callis living in Edinburgh at that time, or will they not have been in Sheffield? Or?
Yeah, well, he was involved in the Scottish music scene. Obviously, the Rosillos were a Scottish band.
Okay.
Because he joined the Human League around about the time of Dare to be like a songwriter after the original lineup split up. Well, yeah, I mean, the letter says, I couldn't help but notice in last issue of Smash Hits, acclaimed by those cuddly fringe tops, the Human League, that they taught me to play keyboards. Well, just to set the record straight, this was a big fib on the part of David Prowse lookalike Adrian Wright. In fact, I doubt that the League could teach anyone to play a kazoo. I mean, my pal Faye Fife says Phil doesn't even pluck his eyebrows properly. So there.
Oh, I'm convinced then. If it's good enough for Paul, yeah.
Yeah, I'm having that.
All right.
There's a letter towards the end of the first page as well. It says, after watching the TV Times Top 10 Awards, I came to the conclusion that all TV Times readers are a bunch of mindless twits who would vote for Barry Manilow as the most exciting singer. And that's from one of Adamant's buckles.
What's wrong with Barry Manilow? Nothing wrong with Barry Manilow.
And then a letter about Adam and the Ants on the next page. It says, I write to tell you of my dislike for Gary. I follow every fashion Tibbs, who is trying and failing to be a so-called ant person. He was bad in the vibrators, absolutely awful in breaking glass and Roxy Music, but now he really takes the biscuit. So somebody, getting a bit annoyed about Gary Tibbs suddenly being in Adam and the Ants.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a strange person to get that annoyed about Gary Tibbs. You know, he's quite a background vanilla kind of guy, wasn't he, really, you know?
He didn't look great in the Ant Gear, though, I must admit. He didn't pull it off as well as Kevin Mooney.
No, but he pulled it off better than Marco, surely. Marco always looked a bit uncomfortable in the satin and the...
I won't have a word said against Marco Peroni, I'm afraid.
Oh, no, I love Marco Peroni to bits, but he never looked very happy in that gear, did he?
No, there's some of it, I think he was, it was a bit too far for him.
Well, talking about Kevin Mooney, it's the next letter down says, while I was doing Kevin Mooney's washing the other week, I noticed his pale lilac shirt with multicoloured shapes on it was missing. Then in 2 issues running, I saw it on Gary Tibbs. Was kicking Kev out of the band not enough? Did they have to take the shirt off his back too? Or did Gary Tibbs nick it from his case when he wasn't looking?
I think what you've got there is a band with a wardrobe department. I think that's what's happening there.
That could be it, couldn't it? That could be it. The carousel spins forward a little more and we land upon Independent Bitz, which is kind of almost like the sister page to the disco special that we had earlier on. Like the disco page, it also has a chart. We've got top 30 singles and the independent albums top 10. And on the independent singles top 30, we'll find The Fall. Last week's number 3, this week's number 3 with the Slates EP on Rough Trade Records.
That's interesting, that, because I'll tell you why. The whole thing about the Slates was it was a 10-inch, 6-track EP, and it was, the story goes, and Mark always said that he did that because that way it wouldn't be eligible for either the singles, the independent singles chart or the independent albums chart. So Rough Trade wouldn't get the credibility that they wanted because he did it to piss off Rough Trade. And so it's not true. It's there. It's in the chart.
No. Jeff Travis had the last laugh because there they are at number 3.
Yeah. So I never took that but face value. That it couldn't go in any of the charts because it was the wrong format. And there it is. Number 3. I mean, that's quite good if you think about it, because it was a lot more expensive than a single. So to get to number 3, 2 weeks on a row, that's not bad. That.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And we also get, just talking about sort of big names that are in here, the very first single by Flock of Seagulls is in here. It's Not Me Talking by Liverpool band A Flock of Seagulls. Their name may be weirdly enticing, but their music barely conceals weak songs under the fashionable icing of electronic trickery and that sound of distant drums. So, going by that review, you wouldn't have expected great things from A Flock of Seagulls. You'd never have imagined there'd been Pulp Fiction all those years later, would you? But there you go. No? There you go. So, it's interesting seeing that page in there. It didn't last all that much longer, did it, Independent Bitz? But
no, and it's kind of almost like elements of John Peel's show that's made it, because it's not like the weeklies, how they would have presented that information. It's got a kind of more friendly, avuncular sort of a feel to it. And it's, here's an address, and send a stamped addressed envelope, and there you go, sort of thing. And very much that John Peel sort of thing. So-and-so's done a fanzine, and send a stamped addressed envelope to this address.
But nice to see it there anyway.
I was going to say, there's nobody you've ever heard of on here, though, is there? Well, a couple of, I've heard of the Fallout Club just about, I think, but none of these, like I say, Flock of Seagulls are the only ones. None of these went on to be the next big thing, did they, on here?
No, not at all. Not even the next obscure thing.
Just going back to the Slate EP,
yep.
And obviously it's in the independent singles chart around this time. What do you remember about maybe the writing of it and the recording of it? Because looking at the credits on the EP, and the writing credits are fairly evenly spread across the band, so you're getting some writing credits in there.
Yeah, I mean, the one caveat with Fall writing credits is that they don't always bear much relation to what actually was going on. But I think the difference then, and it kind of fed into later on, is we got an office in Prestwich, so an office / rehearsal room. So for the first time, things were being written with the drummer with me in the room, with the drummer in the room, because before that, things were written or put together at Mark's flat. So there was never a drummer involved in that, really. I mean, obviously, once it was taken to a rehearsal room, things got developed, but it was the first time I was kind of in on the ground floor of writing stuff, which reflects how, the writing credits, I think. And obviously that fed in later on when we had 2 drummers, because then for the first time we were starting things with drums, things like the classical, where, well, it depended on who you asked this week, who started it off, but we were in at the ground floor as drummer, which was the first time, which is probably reflected in the credits, I think.
Yeah. And looking at the track listing, the EP ends with Leave the Capital, which is the title that you borrowed for your first book.
I did.
So what's that? The history of Manchester music in 13 recordings. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and why you wrote it?
Yeah, well, obviously the Leave the Capital was quite good happenstance for the title, because obviously the book's all about getting out of London, and the book itself is about how the difference between basically the Manchester musicians who started studios and, you know, gave something back to Manchester, if that doesn't sound too pompous. But there's two guys out of Herman's Hermits, Keith Hopwood and Derek Leckenby, and there's Graham Gulman and Eric Stewart, who were later of 10cc, of course. Graham Gulman was mainly a songwriter then. Eric Stewart was in the Mindbenders. And then when they made some money in late mid-60s, they built studios in Manchester. And at that point, there wasn't any studios outside of London. I mean, there was demo studios, but nothing that would get you on a record you could do without going to London. So that was the basis. I started off just thinking I'd write about the studios in Manchester, but then when I found all that out, it kind of had a narrative and a big middle and a beginning and an end. So I wanted to do that and kind of at one point compare it to the Beatles, who obviously came from Liverpool, similar. But once they went to London, they never went back, really. They built Apple, but they built it on, Savile Row, which is like the richest street in the richest borough in probably the richest city in the world. So it was kind of that thing of giving something back. It's something Tony Wilson's talked about with, he's talked about Strawberry Studios, and he's also talked about it in terms of the Hacienda and New Order giving something back to Manchester. But I mean, it's never been more than 2 sentences with Tony Wilson, because, he's a good quote. But I thought I'd try and put some meat on the bones of that. And it's true, I think. I think it is a thing that those people gave something back. And then, of course, because you've got Strawberry in Manchester, you end up with Joy Division making Unknown Pleasures, which I don't think it could have been made quite the same anywhere else. So that's basically the story of the book.
Yeah, and you write a bit about the fall in the book, but you mentioned that Leave the Capital, the song itself, wasn't recorded in Manchester. You recorded that one down in London.
No, it wasn't. That was recorded in London. Yeah, we did that. We did that EP, Slates, which obviously in the charts there. We did that in London, and we worked with. It was Grant Showbiz was the main producer, but I think Rough Trade were looking to make it nice and shiny, so they had Jeff Travis, who was obviously the head of Rough Trade, if you like. He'd produced Grotesque, so they had him in. And we also got Adrian Sherwood in, which was quite a big thing, because he was quite a big sort of dub producer. Mark was a bit of a fan of Prince Farai, so that was why we got him in. And if you look at the cover, I can't think what record it is now. But there's a Prince Farai record, and the cover is very similar to the cover of Slates. So it was kind of Mark's kind of tribute, I think, which I didn't know about at the time. It wasn't like he rang me up and told me. I just found that out later on with a bit of detective work.
And you've done a book since that covers Hex Induction Hour.
Yeah.
And your brother Steve did a book about his time in the fall as well.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't like to compare the two. They're not the same thing. Steve's is a, autobiography, if you will, of his time in the fall. Mine was basically, I was kind of asked, well, the publisher said they'd like to do like a 33 and a third book about Hex Induction Hour. And my main overriding motivation for writing it was because I didn't want anybody else to write it, basically. I thought I could do that. And if somebody else writes it, I don't think it'd be as... I mean, it's quite arrogant. I don't think it'd be as good as if I wrote it. So then that was why I did it. It wasn't something I was planning on doing. I mean, in fact, when I was doing interviews and press and stuff for Leave the Capital, I kept saying I won't be writing about the fall again. So I'll say it again now. I won't be writing about the fall again. So you can look out for my new book about the fall coming out in 6 months.
Yeah, but you're podcasting about the fall, aren't you?
Well, I mean, I did ask if anybody would want to get behind a podcast of the time I worked at Shell for 5 years, but it was kind of got less interest, really. So I decided to go for the fall instead. I mean, there's this conversation, it is interesting. The whole thing of the fall, and what we're trying to do with the podcast, it's not necessarily me and Steve. I mean, the first episode is me and Steve talking about our experience in the fall. That's to get it going, but it's trying to talk about other people's experiences, some of which there is no overlap at all. So it's like us asking about what it was like being in the fall at this time. Obviously, you have a little bit of insight because you've been in a similar situation, but we're talking to people who it's not the same situation. There's like people who were in the fall 3 years, 4 years more after Steve was in there. So it's not just us whittering on about the good old days of the fall. It's trying to find out what makes the fall unique, really, from all ends, from the beginning to the end. That's the plan.
Do you feel like the fall are becoming more and more appreciated as time goes on? As a fan, it feels kind of like that to me.
Definitely, and what's interesting is that, like books like that, Excavate, Bob Stanley, Tessa Norton, and I'm not sure you could write that book about, or not really write, but compile that book about that many bands. We've got a chapter comparing them to non-league football. We've got a chapter comparing them to philosophical writers. I'm not sure there's that many. I mean, Bob Dylan you could do it with, obviously, and possibly the Beatles, probably. But I don't think there's that many. I don't think you'd get, a book like that about Teardrop Explodes, not to the detriment or whoever. I'm just plucking names out, but there's something about the Fall. It's obviously a lot of that's grounded in Mark's writing, because he wrote about anything and everything and made it sound like Marky Smith, which is quite a talent, really, to make, write one song about Krakens and one song about Aftershave, and they both sound like Fall lyrics,
Yeah, I think you're right. And that thing about there's not many other bands or artists that you could write a book like that or compile a book like that on, because the Fall, it's just such an intricate world, isn't it? And the group and the lyrics and the image, and I don't know, just everything. There's such a range of influences all bubbling away at the same time, isn't there? And you can take any strand and give it a right good tug, and there's lots that will come up just from that one strand, Yeah.
What I found looking at the Fall is they're always interesting. They might not always be good if depending on your taste in music. There's a lot of people who don't like the Fall, and there's a lot of people who really like the Fall. But I think it'd be difficult to argue that they're not always interesting. I think, and in terms of writing and in terms of putting a book out, interesting will always trump good or bad. I think, because that's always an opinion, isn't it? But I suppose interesting is an opinion, but there's always something there with the Fall that there's a thread you can pick at.
Yeah. I think. Well, talking of threads, I've got a great little thread now that will lead us back to the magazine.
Oh, I forgot about the magazine, yeah.
Well, I don't know if Si's aware of this, but there's a video, like or a kind of a promo film that the Fall did called Perverted by Language Biz. No, Perverted by Music Biz, sorry.
No, you were right first time. No, the biz is nothing to do, it's biz as in business, as in a slightly rude word for poop. Oh, so it's perverted by language and lots of other shit, basically.
And in it, there's I don't know, it's either a short poem or a short story that Marky Smith wrote that's performed by Alana Pillay. It's called The Confidence of Henry Glasspants. And like I say, it ties in very nicely with this issue of Smash Hits for a reason that will become very obvious in a minute. I'll just read it, it's very short. It says, "Good evening. I'm a Sudan Arab agent in the pay of Baghdad. Kim Wilde doesn't get out to see many gigs, for the son eats low-fat spread. Crazy normal about the Stray Cats after feast of tin tomatoes and cod. The ginger radio bully sausage spitefully refuses to play us." So there we go. A short poem stroke story, and the only two artists it mentions, Stray Cats and Kim Wilde.
Spooky.
Cover stars of this issue.
I didn't pick the issue for that reason, honestly. Isn't that a bizarre thing? I mean, and watching Lana Pillay perform it is bizarre. It's just, what? How can you be Sudan as an agent and be in the pay of Baghdad? Surely you're a Baghdad agent then, aren't you? And there's nothing in that interview that says that Kim Wilde don't get out to many gigs, is there?
I don't believe. Well, maybe she was too busy cooking meals for the rest of her band, or
we'll do tin tomatoes and cod, probably.
That's true. It doesn't say what she cooked, does it? So
no.
Maybe that was it.
Right, it's a bonkers poem, isn't it?
It is
bonkers.
And then this issue of Smash Hits, well, the second part of this issue of Smash Hits, so side B, finishes with the album reviews and various Smash Hits writers having a look at the albums du jour. Richard Strange's album, The Phenomenal Rise of Richard Strange, gets 6.5 out of 10 from Fred Dello. Says the cover depicts the trilby-crowned futurist king casting a long shadow on a screen. But judging by the contents of this album, Strange himself lives, like so many others, in the shadow of Bowie, his musical personality amounting to little more than Ziggy Stardust in a lounge suit.
Fair enough.
The Sparks album, which we've already encountered, gets 6 out of 10 from David Hepworth. Deanne Pearson, although appearing not to like the Grace Jones album, she gives that 8 out of 10. That's Grace Jones' Nightclubbing album.
That's a brilliant album. That's a fantastic album.
Yeah, I'm a huge Grace Jones fan, and just absolutely love that album. But the final album that gets reviewed in this issue is Toyah's LP Anthem. Mark Ellen having a look at this one. What Toya lacks in subtlety and in vocal and songwriting flexibility, a lot, she repays in sheer presence and dubious dress sense. but is this the stuff of lasting LPs? I fear not. You get 11 tracks set firmly on repeat. Stilted, over-theatrical structures, dreamy synthesizers, and the same marching backbeats while she milks all ancient cultures bone dry for lyrics. She simply hasn't the talent required for such a grandiose vision. For haunting, read pompous. 3 out of 10.
Oh.
Scathing.
Yeah, it's not normally very scathing, Mark Ellen, is he? He's normally quite sort of mild-mannered, but he really had it in for that day, didn't he?
It did. But she made it to the front of Smash Hits quite a few times.
She did. I thought this reviews page was quite worthy for the fact that there's a Psychedelic Furs album review, Talk, and there's no mention of him sounding like Bowie. I think that's the first review I ever read of the Psychedelic Furs where there's no mention of Bowie at all.
It's funny how they haven't come up with New Romantic yet. Everything's still futurist, isn't it?
Yes.
Because it mentions futurist in the Richard Strange one. It also says it in the one of the others. The Classics Nouveau gets futurist as well.
Less said about them, the better.
Yeah, lousy.
So, looking back at this issue of the mag, and the only features that we get in there are Stray Cats and Kim Wilde, and it's reflections really on what their lives were like, late teens, early 20s for both acts. I think 2 of the Stray Cats were still 19 years old. So similar age to yourself, Paul, at that time. And, the Stray Cats have come over from the USA and making it big in the UK and being treated like, music royalty wherever they go and getting screaming fans. And Kim Wilde hits the charts with her first single. But what was life like for you in the fall in 1981?
Well, the thing about you got to remember about the fall is that because that Slate's EP is in the indie charts there. So if you'd have gone to see a fall gig around that time or at the same time, we'd probably have dropped a good portion of the Slate stuff by then. And we're playing, by then we were playing stuff that was going to be on Hex Induction Hour, which would get recorded in the December of 81, because that was the way the fall always worked. There was never a let's tour this album that we just put out, because that's what people want to hear. It was never that. So like I say, by then, new songs were creeping in that would be coming out later in the year. But the interesting thing about that is when this came out, this issue, I was just about to sort of go on furlough from the fall, because we did a tour of Europe and where Carl and I played on opposite nights. So I'd play one night, he'd play the next, just to get Carl ready, because the thinking was that I was too young to go and tour America, which came up slightly later in the year, in June, which is true probably. I mean, I don't know that I couldn't have got a work permit or whatever, but I think it would have been quite a daunting prospect for someone who was just about 17 to do that, because it was the biggest tour the fall ever did, before or after. It was like 35 dates maybe in a month and a half, and it was full on, and it was everywhere. It was West Coast, down south, up north. So I think it would have been quite a big ask for me to do it. And anyway, I didn't end up going, so they went without me, which is okay. I got over it.
And so, what was being in the band? Was that a full-time job, or were you having to, had you got a job on the side and stuff?
It was a full-time job for everyone, really. Except one thing, the one proviso when I joined, because I joined in the March 1980, the month after I was 16, so I left school in the June, I suppose, after doing my O levels. But Mark and Kay was the manager, Kay Carroll, said, you can't join unless you go back to college and do your A-levels. We're not going to be responsible for you losing your education at 16 years of age to be a dumb drummer in a band, which was quite... I wasn't very happy about it, but I did it. Obviously, I wasn't going to say, no, well, I won't join then, because I would have ended up going back and doing my A-levels anyway. But so they made me do my A-levels, which I'll always be eternally grateful for, because I got an English A-level and I ended up doing an English degree years and years later, which then led into the writing. So whatever, I can never thank them enough for that. Which is strange. You wouldn't think that they'd be like that. They were, but I mean, Kay was quite maternal in that kind of way, and in an estranged kind of way. Mark was slightly paternal as well. I was talking about this with someone. He was only probably 8 years older than me, maybe something like that. But he was a generation above me in terms of age and in terms of experience and in terms of knowledge. Well, in terms of any kind of anything really. So he felt it was kind of a slightly paternal. Well, it was a boss and employee relationship, and so avuncular, I suppose, would be the other word, the way to look at it. So yeah, they made me do my A levels.
It's very forward thinking, isn't it?
Yeah,
as you say, not something that you would expect from a rock and roll band, particularly one like The Fall. But
no, he's quite a contradictory guy, Mark. And one of the things we try to do in this podcast is to show that there's a lot of stuff written about The Fall, about what a hellish experience it was and what a terrible person Mark was. And with the whole idea of the podcast is to say it wasn't really like that at all. If you do an interview and someone asks you about that, then you're going to answer. But it wasn't like that, really. So that was me in 1981. I sat in my bedroom on my own reading smash hits about the Stray Cats while they gallivanted around America.
Do you remember what you did with your time off from the band?
No, because I was doing my A-levels, but we broke up for summer while they were there as well, so no. Went to see the odd gig, went to see Iggy Pop at the Apollo, which was probably one of the best gigs I ever went to, but not enough compensation for going to New York and supporting the Clash at Bonds, but I've got over it now, I'm not bitter. It's only 40 years.
A lot of therapy and you're through the other side.
Yeah, I was very angry with The Fall. There you go. 20,000 quid worth of therapy have enabled me to say that.
And turning our attention back to that issue of Smash Hits and also the pop music of 1981. And it does feel that 1981 is where the 80s properly begin. Adam Ant is really the first big pop star of the 80s, and I guess you've had all the new wave stuff that's kind of fed into that, but it's finally filtered through and gone pop. And they discovered the dressing up box. So you get Toyah and Spandau Ballet, Duran Duran, who come around a little bit later in 81, I think it was. But it feels like a real kind of transition.
It does.
In 1981, and almost like drawing a line in the sand from what had gone on before, even though what had gone on before hugely informs what goes on that year. It feels like this is such a vibrant time for pop, and you can see it in these pages.
Yeah.
And you look at the gallery of the cover images from 1981, and you can see it being absolutely represented in smash hits. Whether smash hits fed into the changes that were happening in pop music, whether they were just reflecting it, or whether it was just that relationship that just all came about at the same time, and they all just blossomed together. It's hard, it's hard to say which it is. It's just how it happened.
Well, I mean, that's true of all. When you get these cultural movies, you can't tell whether the tail's wagging the dog, but they kind of go hand in hand. But I think the big lyric in there that you got Stand and Deliver, deep meaning philosophies where only showbiz uses. I think he was the kind of start of that, where they sort of said, well, hang on. Showbiz is all right, I think. It's okay to be a pop star. It's okay to give the audience what they want, which was kind of flip of the punk ethic, wasn't it? We're going to play this, and if you don't like it, you can... I mean, that's, that was basically the Sex Pistols and the punk rock mood. Whereas then I think, like you say, in 1981, there was a move to say, this is what people are going to want. Adam Ant, has talked about being showbiz without shame. He made a conscious decision to move away from that punk thing, didn't he? And everyone followed him, and Smash Hits was right on the cusp of that, I think. Which is why it was great. It was exciting then, pop music, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it also still feels like they were doing it themselves as well, that punk ethic still carries through.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Duran Duran thing, isn't it? The Duran Duran thing is cross between the Sex Pistols and Chic, so you've got that Jamie Reid sort of, that whole thing of do it yourself, put a gig on. But you've also got the glitz of Studio 54 kind of thing, That's where it went, I think. If you took the best of both of them, that's what you end up with. You might not necessarily end up with the best band, but that's the way it moved, I think. And there was a lot of glamour that came in after. I think people were a bit fed up of wearing, bin bags and tartan trousers.
That's the thing. I think you were getting the eccentrics and the art school students going and consciously trying to make mainstream pop and kind of being showbiz, but doing it through their own slightly odd filter. And that's what made it so exciting. It wasn't kind of managed, and it wasn't sort of stage school people that were told how to do it. They were making it up as they went along, and that's where the energy and the fizz and the excitement in it all comes from, isn't it?
Which is kind of something you've lost now, I think, where it's all stage school now, isn't it? It seems to be. And it goes hand in hand with, you can't make money. So they're all sort of stage school, wealthy parents. I mean, this is a sweeping generalization, but it seems to be now that there's a level of sheen about acts these days. And, even if you look at any kind of band, indie band, they're all fabulous musicians. You wouldn't, the days when you got even if you look at the Spice Girls, you have the Spice Girls, you've got one of them, one or two of them that can't sing, but now I don't think you would. I don't think you'd get a girl band or a boy band with one of the members who just looked nice or was a fairly decent dancer. They'll all be brilliant musicians. They'll all be brilliant dancers, and they'll all be great singers, because that's the way it seems to have gone now. It seems to be like stage school's taken over everything. But that's just because I'm an old man.
Well, yeah, same here. But, it feels like everything's got to be polished to the nth degree, and there's none of those rough edges or that making up as you're going along DIY kind of feeling that there is in 1981.
I mean, certainly in the pop charts, I'm sure it all goes on under the covers. I'm sure there's lots of people picking up a guitar for the first time, or probably more likely picking up a computer and doing something for the first time. But there seems to be a level of competence in the pop charts now, which is just, you don't get sort of quirky things where it's just some bloke banging it, like the Flying Pickets, where it's some bloke banging a biscuit tin singing, Money or whatever. Did I say the Flying Pickets then? It's not the Flying Pickets, is it? Who sang Money?
No, it's Flying Lizards.
Flying Lizards, yes. Flying Pickets were a different kind of crap, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much to today's special guest, Paul Hanley. I hope you've enjoyed your little ride on the carousel, Paul.
Loved it.
Good.
If you want me back, I'd love to do it again sometime.
We didn't go too fast for you.
No. Perfect speed, that. Yeah, not close to throwing up. I can still have some cockles and whelks on my way back to the seafront.
So, but leave the capital and have a bleeding guess. And then, Brother is the podcast that you're doing with your brother Steve about the fall as well, which people can find wherever you get podcasts from. So, yeah, Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Don't forget to check out our website, giddypoppod.home.blog, where you'll also find links to the issue of Smash Hits that we've been looking at, along with those Spotify and YouTube playlists, so you can enjoy your ride on the carousel to the full. And of course, you can check out our previous episodes, playlists and scans, our back issues, if you will, while you're there.
And if you want to support us by buying us a coffee, we'll be forever in your debt. If you go to ko-fi.com/giddypoppod, that's where you can do that. That's ko-fi.com/giddypoppod. ko-fi.com/giddypoppod. And do come and say hello to us, of course, at giddypoppod on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and we'll say hello back.
So thanks once again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Giddy Carousel of Pop. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.